Daniel Fitzhenry, thank you so much indeed for joining me. Can we start with just explaining to viewers what is your expertise in measuring things like sea levels?
Well, we're hydrographic surveyors, and they make the charts that ships navigate by, and the reason for having charts is so that ships don't get bent.
And when it comes to Fort Denison, why is that a good measure of sea levels around Sydney?
Well, to the east of Australia, all the way across to the United States and South America, is the largest body of water on Earth. And the Fort Denison station has been and remains one of the most reliable tide gauging stations and sea level gauging stations in the world.
And the Bureau of Meteorology has been checking records there for more than a century, and there have been other records going back further again. Can you tell us what the records show?
Well, the Bureau of Meteorology started mean sea level records in 1914. They show the highest levels of the tides, the lowest levels of the tides, but mean sea level is the one that we need, say we wanted to calculate the volume in the oceans, or if we want to calculate if sea level is rising or falling.
But when you look at the data that you've, when you look at the data, you see 1914, then it's pretty high. Then it stays high for, what, a couple of decades, a decade and a half. Then there's low levels for 3 decades, then higher again at the end of the century. But since then, the last couple of years, it's trended down. It's actually lower now, according to your data, than it was in 1914. What does that tell you?
Well, right now, the sea level at Sydney is about 6 centimetres lower than it was in 1914. Now, sea levels are affected by, on a day-to-day basis, by the moon rotating around the Earth. And in the long term, the small pluses and minuses in mean sea level is affected by the planets moving round the sun in elliptical orbits, and sometimes they're closer to the Earth than they are at other times. So mean sea level varies up and down in the range of 20 centimetres.
So from what you've seen, I mean, look, if I had to draw a straight line from 1914, which was maybe an anomalous period just then of highs, I don't know. If you drew a straight line over the late 20th century to now, you probably get a small uptick in sea levels around Sydney. But like I say, the last couple of years, as you say, too, those sea levels have since dropped. Is there an overall trend that you can point to, or do you think, well, look, there is no trend, it goes up, it goes down?
Well, taking your example, if we drew a straight line from the 1914 level to the current level, and we projected that, extrapolated that, which is what a lot of people, ill-informed people have done, then we would have a downward trend, and if we extended that straight line for 100 years, it would be a drop in sea levels in the range of 30 centimetres. If we took a recent high point in mean sea levels and we connected that line to the current mean sea level and projected it, we'd have an extreme downward trend in sea levels. But if you look at the Bureau's levels, recorded levels over this 100-year period, they rise and fall in the range of 15 centimetres.
Well, is there something different going on in, our east coast? I mean, maybe tectonic plate movement, maybe the land is rising, because we are told that we are getting sea level rises through satellite measurements. Or is the on-the-ground measurement the one we really should be paying attention to, and it's not showing the sea level rises that we've been told to expect?
Well, I'm sure that the Fort Denison recorded data by the Bureau of Meteorology is more valuable and more accurate than satellite data on sea levels.
Well, that might explain why Venice is still not underwater too. I don't know. Dave Fitzhenry, this is a real mystery, but as you say, the hard evidence is right in front of us. Maybe the people like Tony Abbott who are wandering out to the beach saying this actually hasn't changed may be right, and the CSIRO, which is predicting nearly a metre of sea level rises by the end of the century, maybe, just maybe, they've got a reason to worry. Thank you so much indeed for your time.
My pleasure.